Hi everybody, I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks lunchtime streaming show, where we watch old 16mm films and kind of scratch our heads. That one was great. Wasn't too hard to figure out. It had some phenomenal nature footage. Well, nature footage. Of various animals cavorting and eating. Always a hit. I mean, I think even contemporary footage, I think people love seeing animals doing what they do. And so that one came from 1931. So how old is that? That is 31. It's old. 31. That would be 90. Yeah, I'm sorry, my math is very poor. Somebody can write it in the comments. I got up early today to 92 years. Thank you. Let's watch some films about gravity. Or watch a film about gravity. And it's called Gravity.
Did you ever stop to wonder why it is that things seem to fall toward the earth? That's what Bob did one Saturday, resting after a game of touch football and watching the autumn leaves drifting down from the trees. Almost everywhere you look, you can see examples of the downward pulling force known as gravity. Gravity pulls children down the slide in the playground. Gravity pulls down on a ball all the time. Even though you can kick the ball high into the air, gravity keeps pulling and brings the ball back down. What is this thing called gravity? It even holds Bob down. And airplanes have to use power to stay in the air against gravity. Bob was wondering what would happen if there were no gravity. And that's where I came in. I know Bob. I'm an engineer at the same plant as his dad. So he asked me what I could tell him about why things seem to fall toward the earth. Well, I was on my way down to the plant, and I suggested Bob come along. We'd see what we could work out together. Gravity is so common that many people don't even stop to think about it. Our bodies and things all around us are held to the earth. Yet there is more to gravity than that, I explained to Bob. To appreciate gravity, you must understand what Sir Isaac Newton meant when he formulated the law of gravitation. As it's sometimes expressed, mutual attraction exists between all bodies. Those are big words for a big idea. But gravity's mutual attraction between bodies is something like the magnetic attraction between two magnets. Each is attracted to the other. That's what we mean when we say that the attraction is mutual. And just as in magnetism, where a larger, heavier magnet can have a greater attraction or pull, so in gravity, the heavier the bodies, the greater the gravitational pull. Bob could understand mutual attraction between magnets, but was there any mutual attraction between him and that desk, for instance? Well, that attraction is very small, but it does exist. We engineers know that it does because we've measured the attraction with delicate instruments. You measure gravity's attraction every time you weigh something. Now, the Earth has a mass billions of times as much as Bob. So it attracts him with considerable force. We measure that force to be 120 pounds. And because my mass is greater than Bob's, 164 pounds is the measure of the mutual attraction between me and the Earth. How does this attraction of gravity affect our solar system? Let's look at it in miniature. Suppose the Earth were the size of a grapefruit. At the same scale, the moon would be about the size of a golf ball. And they would be about 10 feet apart. Nearly a mile away, there would be another round object, say that water tank, about 36 feet in diameter, representing the sun. Mutual attraction keeps these bodies in their places in the solar system. Why don't they come crashing into each other? Well, it might happen if it were not for the fact that all heavenly bodies are traveling through space at tremendous speeds. But the moon, for instance, doesn't go flying off in a straight line because of gravity's mutual attraction between the Earth and the moon, which we can represent by a 10-foot string. Centrifugal force tends to keep the moon going in a straight line, but the force of gravity, represented by the string, pulls it into a circular path or orbit. For exactly the same reasons, the Earth moves around the sun in its own much larger orbit, pulling the moon along with it. Bob was worried about something. If gravity's attraction is dependent on mass, then does the little moon have less attraction than the sun? I was pleased. Bob was really trying to figure this thing out. He was almost understanding Newton's law of gravitation. Gravity does depend directly on the masses involved. But it's inversely proportional to the distance, to the square of the distance. If two objects are moved twice as far apart, the pull of gravity is 1/4. So there's our sun, almost 400 times farther from the Earth than the moon. It all made sense, Bob said. The greater the distance, the less the attraction of gravity. When you understand how the attraction of gravity falls off as the square of the distance, you appreciate how spaceships may travel by rocket to the moon or to other planets. I've been playing around figuring space travel, and the pull of gravity works like this, I told Bob. Say you're here at the surface of the Earth, 4,000 miles from its center. That's the radius of the Earth, 4,000 miles. You weigh 120 pounds. That's normal here at the surface. But you take off in a spaceship. Now you're out 4,000 miles from the surface, really 8,000 miles from the center of the Earth. Being twice as far from Earth's center cuts the pull of Earth's gravity to 1/4. He'd weigh only 30 pounds. The attraction of gravity is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. And up here you must use rocket force in reverse to overcome the moon's gravity and prevent a crash. I had some movies there of the first experimental rocket flights. The force of the rocket motor overcomes the force of gravity and slowly lifts the ship. But these early rockets went only about 100 miles up before they ran out of energy, and gravity pulled them back to Earth. So Bob had a better understanding of gravity, the mutual attraction between bodies. And then he said he'd always thought of down as this way. Actually, to a person at this point on the Earth, this way is down. And to a person here, this way is down. This person is not upside down. As long as you're on or near the Earth, down is toward the center of the Earth. This gravity is attracting everything, solid things, liquids, and even gases, the air around us. Every time you lift something, you're working against the pull of gravity. But we put gravity to work, too. We hoist coal into trucks and let gravity pull it down into our basement. And in the furnace, the coal heats the water for our radiators. When the air around is warmed, it expands, becoming lighter than the cold air around it. So gravity pulls the heavier cold air down, forcing the warm air to circulate and heat the entire room. And so it was that the curiosity about leaves falling down from trees led to an understanding of gravity's mutual attraction between bodies and its importance to our solar system and to so many things on Earth. For example, Bob can figure out the part that the force of gravity plays in drinking through a straw. Can you?
Can you? Man, I love science films from that time period. Especially the ones that are very focused on kind of home experimentation. So, spinning the thing in the air and all these things. I certainly like going to the lab or seeing diagrams and animations, but just showing some basic, well, look, see what you can do with spinning a bucket in the air and the water doesn't fall out. Stuff like that. Big fan. What do we got here? Let's guide children through growth. Enjoy.
This is my 5th grade class. In our social studies period, we're studying a unit on American pioneer life. To the children, these songs and dances represent one phase of the culmination of their activities on this unit. I'm Mrs. Carlton, their teacher. To me, the most important outcome of these activities is the growth and development of the children themselves. Guiding and nurturing this growth is my most important job. It means a constant awareness of each child as an individual in terms of his abilities, his problems, his needs. For example, there's Randy. Randy has particular difficulty in reading. I watched Randy and soon realized that he needed help, but first I had to find out a little more about him. I studied Randy's cumulative record. Perhaps the comments there by other teachers might give me a clue as to how I might help him. Through the grades, the picture was similar. Randy was a well-liked member of his group and an attentive student, but a distinctly slow reader. This has affected his schoolwork in several areas. I visited Randy's mother. In the course of the conversation, I found that Randy's parents were concerned about his reading. I also found that Randy was quite skilled with his hands and spent a great deal of time making models. He did some reading at home in connection with his interest in model building, but his willingness to read did not carry over to his schoolwork. I felt I could capitalize on this interest. Such a nice visit with your mother yesterday, Randy.
Yeah, she told me.
She showed me the model ship you've made, and some of the other models, too. Where do you get the ideas for those things, Randy?
I like to look at the pictures of boats and planes in the newspaper. And I like to look through books and magazines on models and how to make things.
Well, I have a book here I thought might interest you. I'd like to see what you think of it. There's an article here about making model houses. Since you're in the group that's decided to make a model of Daniel Boone's cabin, I thought you might like to look at it.
Uh-huh.
It's really quite easy to read. By appealing to his interests and showing appreciation for his abilities, I felt I'd taken an important step in helping Randy with his reading. Randy was only one member of the class. Others had different needs. There was Kathy. Early in the year, I had noticed Kathy's excessive shyness. Even though the other children liked her, she tended to stay somewhat apart. Kathy was new to our school this year. I tried to make her feel at home, but I hadn't been too successful. So I decided to see Kathy's mother after she was settled in her new home. I phoned to ask if she would come to school some afternoon. During her visit, I learned that the family had lived in 4 different parts of the country in the past 6 years. Her mother was concerned over Kathy's shyness because she wasn't that way at all when she was younger. In fact, her mother went on, even now, Kathy's full of fun when she's just with the family. This conversation helped me in an understanding of some of the possible reasons for Kathy's shyness. I tried to encourage Kathy to take a more active role in the group life around her. Books that they've been reading, and I want you to do something for me, would you?
Yes.
I wonder if you'd go around and find out when they'll be ready to make their book reports.
I have to go around, ask them when they're ready to give their book reports, and write them all down?
Yes, that's right.
Laura? Yes? What's your book report going to be on?
Black Beauty. It's about a horse.
And when do you want to give it?
Next Monday. I like it so much I'm going to finish it over the weekend.
All right. What book are you going to report on, Philip?
Hand Sprinkler or the Silver Skates.
Bye, Mrs. Carlton. See you tomorrow.
Oh, Kathy, wait a second.
Yes?
Were there any Girl Scout troops in Portland?
Yes, but I didn't belong.
Do you think you might like to?
Well, maybe. Yes, I mean if they wanted me to. I don't know many of them very well.
I think they'd like to have you very much, Kathy. Why don't you think about it?
Okay. Goodbye, Mrs. Carlton.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mrs. Carlton.
Bye, boys. Oh, Edna,
Yes?
are you girls going to a scout meeting today?
Yes, at 3 o'clock.
Why don't you ask Kathy whether she'd like to join? You know, this is her first year here, and she mightn't know about your troop.
That's a good idea. Let's ask her, Nancy.
Okay.
Bye. Of course, these problems aren't solved overnight. But children are resilient and respond to guidance. Raymond was another child who needed special attention. Even though he elected to join the group building the model home, he seemed unable to play a constructive role in the class. He never seemed really interested in what the others were doing.
I think you should, yeah.
Okay, I'll go get some.
You jerk.
Raymond! Why did you do that?
Who, me?
Alternately a smart aleck and a clown, Raymond was a very disturbing influence in the classroom. My talks with him hadn't resulted in any positive changes in his classroom behavior. On the playground, however, his behavior as team captain was quite different.
Johnny, Jack, Dick,
Randy. Okay,
Yeah.
Kev. Okay, you guys, they're going to be up first. Steve, you'll pitch.
Here Raymond showed real organizational ability and leadership. How could I help turn these qualities into classroom assets? I wondered if Raymond might be made responsible for the bulletin board, or perhaps I might appoint him as an assistant on our next field trip. I suddenly noticed Philip. Why, Philip, why aren't you playing baseball?
They've got the same number on each side already.
Oh, I'm sure you could fit in. Isn't there someone you could pair off with?
They don't want me to play with them. They don't think I'm any good.
What opportunity would there be for helping Philip to be accepted by the other boys? Later that week, such an opportunity came. Well, I guess there won't be any baseball this afternoon, will the boys?
Oh, shucks. And I brought my lucky mitt. Why can't these weathermen make up their minds? My father said he read in the paper that it was going to be sunny today.
Well, forecasting the weather isn't quite so easy as it seems.
Why not? They got all those maps and things. I brought my new mitt to school, and now I can't even use it. Well, maybe it'll clear up.
Philip, your father works at the weather station, doesn't he?
Yes, Mrs. Carlton.
I remember you telling me recently that you're interested in weather, too.
Yes.
Can you explain to the class what makes rain?
Well, let's see. If I only had some ice cubes and a half glass of water, I could show the class like my father showed me.
Oh, I think we can get those for you at the cafeteria. Dick, will you go?
All right, Mrs. Carlton. Well, rain is actually water that gets up into the sky by rising from the ground. Everywhere, water is going into the air all the time, from lakes, from rivers, and the ocean.
Why can't you see it?
Because it's there in the form of what is called vapor, which becomes part of the air and can't be seen. Air can hold just so much water vapor. The hotter the air gets, the more water vapor it can hold.
You mean there is water vapor right here in the air in this room?
Yes. And it feels like very moist air today, and that's important. The moister the air gets, the better the experiment works. Here are the ice cubes. Thanks. Now watch this closely. You notice the outside of the glass is dry. You can feel it. Now, I'm going to place some ice cubes in it. Watch the outside of the glass. You see, it's getting wet. Now, why do you think that is?
Is the glass sweating?
No, glass can't sweat, but I'll tell you what's really happening. You see, there is moisture right here in the air of this room. Now, when the warm air of the room is chilled by the cold glass, the warm air just around the glass gives up some of its water vapor in the form of little drops of water. You can see these little droplets on the outside of the glass. As more droplets form there, they join together and begin to drip down the sides of the glass. That is actually rain. Now, rain outdoors is caused the same way. Water vapor rises into the air and moves around with the winds. When the water vapor strikes cold air, droplets form, and when they join together in drops big enough to fall, it starts to rain. Today, right over this town, the warm, moist clouds were blown into cold air, making it rain.
I think we all agree that each of us has gotten something from this fine explanation of the weather. Thank you very much, Philip. You know, that's one of the nice things about school. Right here, we can all get together and share some of the things we know and like. Each of us is better at some things than at others. Some of us may be especially good at drawing or sewing or baseball or explaining the weather. But each of us knows something or can do something that the rest of us would find worthwhile learning. The next day it was sunny again, and the ball game was in full swing. Philip was on one of the teams and came to bat.
Come on, Philip! Hit it right through that hole there! Come on, Philip! Hit a long one! Come on, you
A teacher faces all sorts of problems. For example, what should be done when a child enters the classroom late, especially if it happens several days in a row? I decided something should be done, but I wasn't yet sure what. I asked Dorothy to see me after school that day. Actually, there was good reason for Dorothy's lateness. Her mother was away each night caring for her grandmother, who was very ill. Dorothy had the responsibility each morning of getting herself and her younger brother ready for school. Their father was unable to help much, since he left very early for work, and the family couldn't get any other help. I decided to explore what kind of help the community could give to Dorothy's family faced with a problem of this sort. I couldn't help thinking how important it had been to find out the reason behind Dorothy's lateness. Had I first spoken any word of reprimand, Dorothy's sense of justice, her feeling of confidence in the adult world might have been impaired. Each child should have a chance for a reasonably wide range of expression in accordance with the child's interests and abilities. A girl like Edna, who had an unusual intellectual capacity, could find types of satisfaction that most children don't need. I tried to help Edna find records and books which would carry her further into the study of pioneer songs and dances than the others cared to go. Of course, there are always problems which a classroom teacher cannot solve alone and which require special attention. There was Peter, who stuttered. I had learned from the cumulative records that there had been an earlier referral of Peter to the school psychologist, who felt that there was a correlation between Peter's stutter and the fact that his mother was forced to spend so much time caring for his sister, who was a cripple. Over the years, Peter's stutter had varied in intensity. Peter's condition was getting worse again, and I decided to see about getting help for him. There was Evelyn, whose withdrawal from the life around her was so great that I simply couldn't reach her. I held a conference with Mr. Clark, the principal, about Evelyn, and we decided to encourage her mother to consult with the school psychologist. These are some of the children in my 5th grade class. Each child has his special needs and problems. For some children, the difficulties of growth can be very severe. As a classroom teacher, my most important job is to try to understand each child and guide his growth in accordance with his needs. This is the task, as well as the challenge, to all who teach.
Just stopped. I love teachers. I absolutely do. I have a great deal of respect for them, and wish that there was more support given to them by society nowadays, because they made me who I am. My parents certainly did, but having invested teachers definitely helped helped me a lot, introduced me to a lot. So there's my soapbox. Okay, so behind me we have a film scanner. Oh, and William, thank you so much for the coffee. William went to ko-fi.com/avgeeks and he got his coffee. Got myself and my assistant's coffee. You can also go to patreon.com/avgeeks or hit the super thanks button and you can donate in the YouTube chat. All right, so anyways, we have this film scanner, and I have a film on here. I'm just going to let you try to guess future tense. What do you think this film is about? Future tense. Is this a film about conjugating verbs? Maybe. What do you think it's about? All right. And I've obscured the label, which will give it away. So here we go. Everybody, have people guessed in the? It's about predictions. Let's see. You want to watch Banana Eye again? All right. Okay. Where's my little thing? Okay, future tense. Any other guesses? Future tense. Maybe I should be saying it as future tense. I don't know. Anyways, here it is. Future tense. Enjoy.